Invincible returned this week to our app screens with a brand new episode entitled We Need to Talk. I'm Cape Joel, and in case you didn't already know, this is the video series where I give my thoughts and feelings on the episode that was, as well as shouting out any comic book Easter eggs or references I can find. So with that out of the way, let's get to it, shall we? So then, after that explosive fallout from the previous issue, Debbie now officially knows it was her husband Nolan whom were the Guardians of the Globe. We get a very tense scene wherein Debbie not only attempts to make sense of it all, but even tries to give her husband several outs. Surely you were blackmailed or mind-controlled or something, right? Omni Man attempts to say he wanted to try and tell his wife the truth for months now, but he just couldn't bring himself to do it. Why, for the rest of the episode, he very purposely also doesn't give any real concrete answers for his actions either. It's almost as if deep down in his heart of hearts he knows once he pulls that trigger, there's no unpulling it. The question then ultimately becomes who's going to break this news to Mark, and especially who's going to be able to break it to him first. Omni Man certainly wants to be first. In fact, we see a scene very reminiscent of one from issue 9 of the comics wherein he gives a heartfelt speech to his son only to realize that he's not actually talking to anyone. It's clear that Nolan very much feels that if he can manage to get Mark on his side somehow, then everything he's done up until this point will still be worth it. Now back over with Mark, we see that he's still being frozen out by Amber for abandoning her during the Man fight last episode. Mark really hates the idea of losing her so much to the point that he's prompted to just up and reveal his secret identity to her. After all, what better way to prove his love and devotion, right? Only here's the big problem. Amber already knew that he was invincible, which means she's not just mad at him for leaving, but mad because of his continued lying. Honestly, this scene is such a scathing indictment of every other comic book romance built on the bedrock of dishonesty, and you know exactly which ones I'm talking about, right? Basically, they're saying even if you are a superhero and you are running around saving the world for the greater good, it doesn't give you a pass on being a bad person or a bad partner. And yeah, you know what? You can draw a ton of parallels between this exchange between two lovers and the Debbie and Omni Man story. In the end, they're both tales of, how love is brought down by lies and broken trust. In fact, as I stop and think about this even further, maybe this proves that Mark is more his father's son than even he knew. Hell, it's not even just being a bad boyfriend Mark gets called out over this episode. William very rightly chastises him over his bad behavior as a friend in the previous episode and his slowness to act as a hero when it came to saving Rick from the Man. Also, in a move kind of uncharacteristic for the genre, Mark doesn't much like all of these dressing downs he's been receiving from the people in his life, and as such figures the only person who might still offer him a sympathetic ear is Adam Eve. After all, right, she's a hero, so she must understand. But once again, Eve isn't afraid to give Mark some very harsh medicine, saying that, he took the wrong parts of all of her old advice. She didn't tell him to lead Amber on the way he did, and she especially didn't say to pull out the I'm a superhero card as some kind of emotional manipulation. In fact, their conversation gets even more heated when Mark brings up the idea that he's thinking of quitting being a superhero just because he suffered a few minor setbacks despite all of his many great upsides. Meanwhile, Adam Eve has done more good and saved more people in the last 3 days than she did 3 years of regular superheroing. Though admittedly, as bad as Mark thinks he has it now as Invincible, he has no idea how bad things are going to get for him and his family very, very soon. Now, at the complete other end of the story, we see a lot of movement this week from the ongoing robot saga. We know he had broken the Mauler twins out of jail so they could help him clone a brand new body with Rexplode's stolen DNA, and now it seems it's time to collect on this transaction. Furthermore, that gross creature in the test tube we've been seeing Robot talking to all show long, yeah, that's actually the real Robot in case you were wondering. Now, while the morality of Robot's actions all season long have been questionable at best, when we see the amount of suffering and pain he's willing to put himself through just for the chance to get a new lease on life, it's hard not to have just the smallest amount of sympathy for him. The cloning process too, as it's presented in this episode, also asks a ton of very interesting science fiction questions and gives us a much better understanding of what exactly makes the Mauler ticks too, so all in all, a very, very good scene. Thumbs up from me. With the transaction complete, Robot officially takes the form of Rudy Connors. This happened in the comics too, but not until much later in the series. It's fun too from a voice acting standpoint. Rudy sounds like a younger Jason Mantzoukas, but with the speech patterns and cadences of Zachary Quinto. They really did their homework here, didn't they? But wait, Betrayal. Now that Rudy has his body, he says it's time for the Maulers to go back to jail. Wow, is it more or less evil to strike a deal with villains than not actually keep up your end of the agreement? We actually get treated to a very creative fight scene wherein the Maulers have to do battle with more of Rudy's machines that he can control using his mind. Ultimately, though, this battle ends in a no contest as Robot is recalled to deal with the escalating threat that is Omni Man. Understandably, the team is pretty damn freaked out about his new body, though admittedly they don't have much time to really dissect the implications of it all. I do enjoy, unlike in the comics though, Monster Girl riddles out why Robot did what he did right away, and we actually get to see Rexplode's reaction to things that the book didn't actually do. As we enter the end game, Omni Man is now fully aware that his wife knows the truth, and because of that she's gone to Cecil and the Global Defense Agency for protection. There's no longer any reason for him to play the part of the superhero anymore, and Omni Man tears through the agents that were sent to spy on him, including poor Donald, who in the end actually shows some rather heroic bravery of his own. What follows in the latter half of the episode is one giant rampage wherein the GDA throw every contingency they have at Omni Man to try and stop him. First they shoot him with a big giant space laser, it doesn't really do anything, then Cecil tries to confront him himself and get inside his head while teleporting around, again does not do much. Why, they even send some new versions of the Reanimen after Nolan, and they only serve to slow him down for a little bit and freak me out with all the biting. That's uncomfortable. This scene is super cool too because Omni Man never actually fought the Reanimen in the comics, so this is a wholly original fight scene for the show. It's right around here that all these different storylines come to a major head when Cecil decides to use his ultimate Hail Mary play, a giant kaiju monster that Omni Man had killed all the way back in season 3. Only now its nerves are dead and it's got a cocktail of steroids in its system, and oh yeah, it's pissed as hell and blames Omni Man. It's only now at this key moment do Invincible and Adam Eve make the scene, and understandably Mark wants to go and help his father, having no idea what's actually happening around him right now. The truest, most heartbreaking drama though for my money comes in the form of Adam Eve, who gets a call from Debbie explaining what's going on, only for Cecil to tell her that she needs to retreat and reinforce the Guardians of the Globe as the world's last line of defense against a rogue Omni Man. Meaning Eve is forced to make the impossible choice between her friend and the well-being of the entire planet. Did I also mention that Cecil can't turn the monster off, meaning there's a good chance that Debbie might very well have to watch her own son get killed? And just when you think, well, the stakes can't get any higher and they certainly can't throw anything else at me right now as the audience, they do. A mortal man living up to his name is resurrected by the Maulers and joins the battle looking for revenge on Omni Man for the death of himself and the Guardians. Also, they imply that he might be Abraham Lincoln. Do with that what you will. It's another very bloody, very brutal, very untraditional superhero fight, one that this time ends up actually getting seen by everyone on Earth. So when Omni Man finally snaps, shows his true colors, and kills a mortal man once again, there's no hiding who he truly is, not from his son or from anyone else in the world for that matter. And so that was We Need to Talk, and honestly it put to rest one of my biggest fears for this series, and that is that they wouldn't be able to dovetail all these different seemingly unrelated storylines at the end. Well, I've never been happier to be wrong, everybody. This is also an episode that lets the title character of Invincible take a back seat for a while and allow the rest of the cast to have the spotlight, which I always enjoy when a show has the confidence to do that, and this is definitely one of those. The stage is also perfectly set now for one hell of a reckoning, and considering that the next episode, episode 8, just so happens to be written by Invincible series creator Robert Kirkman, I think we can all agree we're going to be in for something cataclysmic.